Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by the members at grandtheftworld.com. And I did not turn off my ringer. All right, so I'll take care of that after the break. We have a lot of things to cover in this week in Grand Theft World news history. A lot of activities have gone on. Some of them are related. Some of them are yet to be related by future events. Let's see how it all works out. Trump and Elon and Doge have been doing a lot the past week. USAID, we already knew was a massive fraud. They found more. The Social Security, massive fraud, like $100 billion fraud they just found. IRS, yet to be seen, but the Doge guys were, I guess, going around inside the Internal Revenue Service, which is pretty interesting because it's also been floated that maybe they'll just get rid of that place. I don't want to count the chickens before they hatch, and I don't want to get too excited, but that's kind of an exciting thing that only freedom people talked about such things for the past 20 years. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Elon also spoke at the World Governments Summit. It's a plural. It's not just for world government, it's for all the world governments. He elucidated a plan that's not too far off of what Klaus recommends for everybody. He's got a lot of technocracy and cybernetics and surveillance and other things to help control the people. It's very Project Stargate that they're working on, but there's more to be learned with that. Now, also with the January 6th folks, some of them getting released, or at least they're ordered to be released and the DC jail's still holding on to them. Well, they've seen fit, some of them have released their interrogation tapes. And when you see the heavy-handed use of interrogation techniques on American citizens, it probably will make you feel like I felt when I saw the film In the Name of the Father with Daniel Day-Lewis about the British using torture techniques and all sorts of things to make them lie so they could be framed up for terrorists when really it was like MI6 doing it, if I remember. Anyway, those things go on in America. Seeing footage of it is something that people need to be aware of so it doesn't happen again. This past week, RFK Jr. was also confirmed, and they're talking about a class action suit against pharmaceutical companies. Trump also has issued an executive order that any learning institution or school that mandates COVID vaccines will now lose federal funding. That's also a step in the right direction. FBI has been told they're going to have to come up with the JFK records and other things that are sought after by the American people, but they found proactively, they're like, here's 2,400 records. Just before we even looked for stuff, we just happened to have these in the corner, and they're going to start leaking that out. I want you to be on guard for those who claim to be leaking out these deep state secrets that have been held so closely for the past 75 years. And I want you to think about what they're not telling you amidst the stuff that they are telling you, because there's maybe a little bit of endeavor to cover these things up, and we're going to get into that. The world has also learned what you have known for a few years now, and that is Israel used the Hannibal Directive on October 7th to kill hundreds of its own people in a predetermined military strategy that prevents their people from being taken as hostages, which also brings up the question, how did Hamas get so many hostages when there was the Hannibal Directive? We'll get into that. Also, the underlying agenda for Gaza is not just the real estate and building resorts on the coast. There's a lot of natural resources there. There's over 1 trillion cubic feet of natural resources right under the water, right off the coast there in Palestine, which is very convenient to people who've had longstanding plans and contracts to seize those natural resources, natural gas, these sort of things. So there's international news, there's domestic news, there's a lot of contradictory views that we have to reconcile with evidence, and we've also got some books we're going to check into tonight. So let's get started with Luke Radowski from wearechange.org and thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Get his report from earlier today, and then we're going to start breaking open the news with a sledgehammer because it's about time.
Listen, I'm willing to pay taxes. Only if Donald Trump decides to set up a live stream when he's doing this.
You're fired. 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 You're fired.
Yes, please, and more, as already the larger impacts of Donald Trump going after the bureaucratic swamp deep state is very eye-opening and so pleasing and amazing and beautiful to see, as already entire housing markets are being obliterated because of his major moves, as he is planning on even bigger moves that are going to really piss off the liberals and the establishment. As already, I gotta say here, listen, whatever you might say about their personal lives, baby mama drama, I do not care. Because Trump and Musk have already fired thousands of U.S. government bureaucrats. Yes, please, and more. They have already done this in many different ways. They give out severance packages, which I think is too kind. I think it's way too nice of a scenario and situation that's unfolding right now. It's, of course, they should have a week where they go to the federal bureaucracy and look, guys, if you guys are involved in fraud, waste, and abuse or any kind of corruption, come forward right now, and we will be extremely lenient on you if we ever are going to even criminally prosecute you. That's step one of what I think should be done here. Step two is, you're involved in corruption. You didn't even admit it. Fired. Maybe even some criminal charges. And then I think we could weed out people who actually are good workers, honest people who actually did work for the government. Rare anomaly. Morally unethical people with moral framework that's really messed up and totally not perceived on the basic reality of what's actually happening in this world. Excuse me, I'm diverse. But if there are some miraculous angels out there that were good people, that are hardworking people, absolutely, give them a severance, take care of them, and let's find a place for the good people in positions of power and also help them out. Which I think is great, especially with some kind of larger initiatives to help American manufacturing. I think that's the way forward here, because clearly the old system that we are under is a broken, corrupted system where a lot of people were just taking everything for themselves. It was like the Titanic is shipping, and these people are just trying to get all the silverware that they could, as the misidentified people with the cutoff, we're trying to get on the lifeboats first. Obviously, that was the priority of the previous administration, as this administration is already cutting back so much, as staff at the CDC and NIH are reeling, as a lot of their wasteful spending is now finally being recalled, and the people who are not supposed to be there, they're just being fired. Nearly 10,000 people fired already, as a lot of people in the corporate media are calling this a purge. Good. A system that is sick, a system that is rotten, deserves to be purged, as the layoffs are accelerating and more cuts are to come. Yes, please. More, please. Let's go. The Washington, D.C. housing market has already plummeted because of all these major layoffs, and there's more coming. A lot of people are calling this a bloodbath. Yes, as this is now happening in D.C. as the price of real estate is going down, since there's a lot of it available. Washington, D.C., by the way, per capita, more sociopaths there than anywhere else in the United States. That's not a coincidence there. And a lot of people who had it far too long, that were living off of the government teeth, screwing over the American taxpayer, their days are done. As there's entire cities that by the way, depend on federal handouts. How do we get to this place, as New Mexico's looking on in fear? How do we get to a place where entire cities, even some states, are predominantly dependent on government jobs? The government's it's not in the industry of creating jobs. When you look at government, it creates and de-incentivizes job creation through their bureaucracy, through their taxes, through their regulation, through them being a middleman and stopping private enterprise and true capitalism from actually existing in our society. As of course, we don't have capitalism. We have socialism for the super rich, and everyone else was told to screw themselves. But now, with less government, now with more cuts here, and the great work that Doge and Elon Musk are doing when it comes to cutting federal agencies, it's amazing. Business Insider released just what they were doing, specifically with the cuts to the National Aerodynamics and Space Administration, to the Department of Education, to the DEI initiatives, to the U.S. Agency for Internal Development, to the Federal Workforce, to the Federal Aviation Administration, to the Treasury Department, to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, and more. This is only week 3, by the way. Next, in a couple days, it'll be week 4. I am flabbergasted. And I never thought this day and age would come, as of course there's so much waste, there's so much fraud, and a lot of it is based in Medicare, Medicaid, in Social Security. Elon Musk is looking at it, and what is he discovering? He's discovering people as young as 150 years old are still somehow on the Social Security dime. Our system is outdated. It is old, as of course now Trump is set to make the moves that are even going to be far more pleasing, far more entertaining, far more awesome and amazing for the average American, as this truly, even according to the Daily Mail, is going to set ablaze rural America and make Democrats furious. Before getting into that, check out wearechange.shop. It's the one clear way to support us. We work with a lot of great companies, a lot of great industries, and we launch a lot of really cool stuff. The product that I'm guys, relax, take it easy. It's not that bad. As Trump right now is promising to do, one of the things that I think is the best thing, not yet, because already it's so many, but one of the best things yet, and that is of course allow people to have silencers. As the United States president is hinting at getting rid of legislation that stops American people and other foreigners from getting suppressors. Suppressors in the firearms industry are something that, to get now, you have to jump through a bunch of hoops. You have to pay a $200 tax stamp. You have to go through this process. And then the ATF and the government look at the stuff. They take forever. They scratch their butts. Sometimes they're efficient. But there's been other reports and other times of waits as long as months and years to get approved to have a kind of deafening device in order not to highlight where your kind of fire is coming from, but also, more importantly, not to deafen your ears so you don't need ear protection. For some reason, the ATF and other government regulatory agencies have said, no, that is an NFA item. You cannot have something that helps you prevent hearing loss. You can't have that. Why? What's the purpose? No explanation. You just can't have it. Donald Trump now will be unwinding this, as of course he has also ordered Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, to look into all federal gun policies, specifically ones that are, quote, improperly restricting gun rights. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of ridiculous laws and rules and regulations about bump stocks, about barrel lengths that don't make any kind of legitimate difference when it comes to the larger kind of ramifications of it all. But it still creates a larger excuse for the government to come into your life to try to federal prosecute you, to try to arrest you, and try to put you in trouble because accidentally you didn't know about this stupid law where you can't have a 90-degree grip, but you could have a 30-degree grip. What? That's idiotic. And it looks like Donald Trump soon might be ending all restrictions on silencers, allowing the average American, who probably isn't a felon, because already people are like, we need background checks. We already have that. Like, you fill out a federal form and you have to call the government and they have to approve you to get a firearm in the United States. People, not really paying attention to what's really going on here. But now, finally, they will probably get rid of this nonsensical, idiotic rule that has been used to go after people and allow people to have silencers, which would mean essentially a lot more Americans being able to not have to deal with ear pro, not have to deal with these larger kind of concussive rounds, dealing. And again, suppressive is always something that I always kind of wanted, just because it just makes sense. I like, I really wanted one, but I'm like, I got to jump through the government hoops and allow them to like inspect me at any time that they want just to have this. That's ridiculous. So Trump ending this is definitely going to make a lot of Democrats mad and angry. Why are they going to be mad and angry? I don't know. They usually just are mad and angry. but there's no reason for them to be furious about this. Since, of course, this is not going to make any kind of difference, especially since a lot of legal law-abiding firearms owners are not responsible for the vast majority of gun crimes and the injuries that result in them. Lots of it has to involve with people hurting themselves, and specifically a lot of illegal activity amongst gangs inside of big American cities. Another thing that Donald Trump is even potentially hinting at doing that would really piss off the establishment is that he's also reportedly considering withdrawing the United States from NATO. Now, this latest Munich hearing with J.D. Vance delivering his speech, which Donald Trump was impressed by, the speech was pretty funny too, even though the members of the European Union didn't find it funny. The members of the European Union were kind of mad at J.D. Vance for kind of stating the obvious of what he was talking about, specifically when it comes to respecting free speech, respecting people's ability to politically disagree with you, which the European Union is very allergic to. He talked about NATO conducting their own kind of fair share of support for NATO, since the United States socializes and supports this larger kind of alliance network more than any other country out there. And now Trump is going to be in Saudi Arabia with Russia discussing what are we going to be doing with Iran? What are we going to be doing with Ukraine? What are we going to be doing with the nuclear arms? What are we going to be doing with Korea? And I wouldn't dismiss the likelihood of NATO membership being a bargaining chip that Donald Trump is kind of putting on the table, saying, look, you give us this, we'll withdraw from NATO. You give Ukraine security protection, we'll get out of NATO. I think that's something that could be a plausible deal that could be worked out here. Or with the way that a lot of these deals are kind of being worked out and negotiated, it could be, hey, we'll make sure Iran denuclearizes, but we'll get out of NATO. But Russia has to make sure that they denuclearize. Stuff like that, negotiations like that are happening right now, as a lot of people are now finally realizing, holy cow, we actually have a government that is actually paying attention, that is actually bargaining, that is actually negotiating, that is not just bending over and taking it up on the wazoo. As the Democratic Party is in shambles, a lot of them are pissed off. The corporate media is just absolutely losing their minds, comparing free speech to the start of totalitarian governments for some reason. Yeah. That's not a fair assessment there, as corrupted FBI agents like Peter Strzok just deleted all of their posts on social media. So, yeah, takecalm.com is probably what a lot of these people are going to be needing in order to deal with their kind of wrecked nervous systems, as, of course, they shouldn't be freaking out. They should be happy. I'm happy. If you're happy, share this video. I love you guys.
All right, welcome back. That was an interesting section because it touches on a lot of pieces, but some of those pieces need a lot more fleshing out throughout the evening. The USAID continues to reveal week after week new layers of, just hundreds of billions of dollars. I said it was, half jokingly on the tweeter last week. I said, the U.S. debt is like $36 trillion. And, is it just a tab for all the money they've stolen from us? Is there no legitimate debt? Are we debt-free in America once we take away the crime and the waste and the exorbitant expenditures? Just the $100 billion being paid out to Social Security applicants who are dead for like 150 years dead. That's a lot of money. I had to count the zeros because I was like, well, maybe it's just like $100 million, but no, it's like $100 billion that's being paid out to people who aren't living, which I would imagine makes it hard for them to pay Social Security to the people who are living and actually paid into it and deserve it. So that plus lots more to cover. I'd like to welcome to the show Scott Armstrong. How you doing, Scott?
What's up, Richard? I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I wanted to call you America's Comedian. We got to come up with a handle for you.
America's Comedian.
Over on the Jimmy Show. You know how they always
that's right.
Jimmy's got that set up. He's like, I'd like to welcome America's Comedian.
Comedian, I don't know. I'm working on some stand-up material, though, because I'm going to be emceeing an event here in Nashville with Sam Tripoli and Leonardo Johnny and stuff. So if you guys are in the Nashville area, there's a... I need to get the website. But anyway,
we played Leonardo's clip like probably a couple months ago because that was going around. And Sammy's funny as shit, dude. Sam also has his own club, the Comedy Dojo in New Jersey. I've never been there, but he gave me a t-shirt. Yeah.
Sam Tripoli has his own comedy club?
I'm pretty sure he opened it before COVID. It closed down for a little bit, but I heard him mention it a couple weeks ago and something he was doing live. So I was like, he probably opened it back up. And I'd like to get some friends and go down there.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
I'm trying to figure out how to see Jimmy Dore here on April 1st because I don't know if I'm going to be in town for that. All right, so tonight we have some books we'll cover. I got this book this week. I also sent it to Kurt, The Difference Between God and Larry Ellison, inside Oracle Corporation. Punchline, God doesn't think he's Larry Ellison. That's the difference, because Larry Ellison thinks he's God. Anyway, I got to work on the book cam because it keeps going in and out, and that wasn't a live shot. That was just it not working, but luckily it had the screenshot on there that I needed. All right, so I have different sections set up for tonight's show. There is an Israel section, there's a USAID section, there's a DEI section. We're going to do the miscellaneous news from America section first, and part of it is people were realizing there was more lies going on during the Biden administration than they knew. For instance, they told us it was super low unemployment. For a long time, the job market and Joe Biden making them millions of jobs, and now we're finding out that wasn't true. Now, we knew it wasn't true. So who were they? Like, the lies only work on their own audience. Only Democrats really believe that. Now they're finding out that's not true. I don't know why you'd want to be on that side when it's continuously disappointing. They make up like Trump's the worst guy ever. He's Hitler. Oh, now he's in the White House. Everyone has to be nice to him. Like, they just have like such a short attention span that they don't notice the contradictions, and they just keep doing it, and we all have to tolerate it. Part of this covered in that section is that there's a clip in here. It says it was Bill Burr, and he made these comments, and it wasn't like a piece of an act. This is really how he feels, and he was saying that billionaires are the problem, right? And crash and burn, bro. Phil Labonte, I think, said it best from over on the Timcast. He's like, Bill Burr has a helicopter. So those people in his audience that he's trying to placate to, being like, I'm not with the billionaires. I'm just a 20, 50 millionaire, right? He's like, bro, they see you as rich too. They see you as wealthy. They don't relate to you. You fly a helicopter, right? So like, you're burning your whole shit down, but it is entertaining to watch, you know, the Schadenfreude angle. That could be his next angle, next album, the Schadenfreude angle.
Yeah. I mean, there's the whole. That's just really emblematic of just like the whole thing where they're all being forced to defend an indefensible position, and so like
defending the IRS.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a clip with their new like anti-fraud investigation song.
Yeah,
we will overcome. We will.
Yeah. Oh, you got that clip? I saw that clip. Oh God.
And then
it's unbelievable.
And then there was a clip from Liberal Hive Mind where one of the J6ers released their interrogation tape. So you see from the camera angle in the room, and you hear all the crazy stuff that they tell all of them, right? There's 1,500 of them. They're all getting the same speech. And this guy's like, dude, we arrested 350 people with you. This is what's going on. If you don't make a deal right now, all this opportunity goes away. So it's a very high pressure situation. Credit goes to the J6er who released the tape, didn't take the bait, did their time, and really did not help the state make up a bunch of stuff. Because again, my intro reference about In the Name of the Father with Daniel Day-Lewis, I'm going to have to find a clip from that movie, because when I was in college, I didn't know that the British were at war with the Irish in the 70s. It was a shock to me. So when I see that opening scene of like English-speaking people using tanks on English-speaking civilians and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and then later in the movie, there's a whole lot of interrogation and torture, and they want them to lie. They know they didn't do the thing. They're setting these people up, and they want to break them so that they'll hold up their bullshit story that they made up. That technique of intelligence, unfortunately, made it across the Atlantic at some point. And we didn't teach it to the British. That's what I'm going to say. I'm not saying it's their fault, because I say a lot. And it's not the British people. It's the people who took over their country that also took over our country. So we have everything in common and not much in difference. Yeah. All right. So in this block, we've got Timcast. We've got Coleon Noir. Oh, that's the other one. That's the last clip in this block. This is a hard clip to internalize. So we'll put it at the end of the block. It's not at the beginning of the show. It's just like in the first half hour of the show. A man was carrying his gun in his pocket at a convenience store bodega type situation. And you can tell from the camera, he's being cased by predatory people who wish to do him harm and or steal his property. They take his gun. I'm going to explain it, even though we're going to show it. They take his gun. He protests A lot. Now, when someone takes your gun, there's not a lot of words you can use to get the gun back. Okay. And you should probably call it a day, search for cover, call 911, do a bunch of other things. Live to see another day in that case. In his case, he's really upset they took his pistol and he attempts to go get it back. So he leaves the convenience store after these guys. And then you hear like 30 shots. So I'm sure he was shot with his own pistol because that's in the report, but they also were already well armed and they don't follow the law. So they probably had, you know, all sorts of things they're not supposed to have, because when you hear it pop off in the clip, it's a serious incident. And any other bystanders who just happen to be there that night also, that's not a good thing. So the lessons about being responsible when you carry a Second Amendment type of tool: if you think open carry is best for you, that's fine. But you are telegraphing to everybody there where the thing is that they want. And if you're not paying attention and you don't have both hands available to defend yourself, it can readily get out of control. Whereas concealed carry, no one knows until they need to know. And at that point, it's too late. It's past words, right? So, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up in case anybody would have, like, you know, kids in a room and whatnot. There's nothing graphic in the video other than if you understand the context of what's going on, it's very graphic, but there's nothing graphic in the footage itself. With all that being said, all caveats being offered to the audience, now let's explore this week's beginning news block and let's see what we can learn about our own country, our growth, our history, and the state of our national security and our personal security. Let's check it out.
Yes, that explains it. Democrats were tricked. Poor Democrats. They were tricked. Politico writes how Democrats were tricked into believing the economy was strong, writes former U.S. Comptroller Eugene Ludwig. My friends, today we are dealing with high prices and a difficult economy, but we were only about 3 weeks into the Trump presidency, so we're hoping to see some swift changes. One of the things that Trump has heavily focused on, of course, is Elon Musk's Doge, ripping out fraud, waste, and abuse. Or is it waste, fraud, and abuse? Whatever. You get the point. Democrats are actively fighting against Elon Musk as he tries to gut the waste, fraud, and abuse. I heard one story. I don't know how true it is, but apparently someone set like a single page in, like one piece of paper invoicing for like $1 billion. And this was actually discovered, and they said, what is this? What's going on? But nothing was ever done about it. Elon Musk said early on that he discovered the Treasury Department was basically rubber stamping any and all invoices, zero oversight, zero accountability. And he's also pointed out that retirements are processed in a mine, like literally in a mountain shaft on paper. So let me just pause. During the election, when we kept saying the economy's not good, famously, Don Lemon of CNN, formerly of CNN, goes to Atlantic City and he interviews people on the boardwalk and he says, who you voting for? One guy goes, I'm voting for Trump. And he goes, why are you voting for Trump? The guy says, the economy. And then Don Lemon says, the economy's actually really good. And the guy laughs like, oh, okay, buddy. What's fascinating is that if you were, say, like a regular human being who had gone to the grocery store, you knew the economy was in fact not good. But Politico says Democrats were tricked. Well, to be fair, Democrats get tricked a lot. But the one big thing Trump can do right now, which he is literally doing to help get prices down, or at the very least increase your buying power, is stop giving money away for free to corrupt NGOs and these programs around the world for God knows what. Gender studies, plays, and gender TV shows. Man, they really love the gender stuff. Mike Benz points out that USAID was funding a whole lot of art and culture. Well, the reality is politics is downstream from culture, and everybody knows it. And that's why Democrats had largely been funding arts. Cultural programs, things that are fun. People like these things, and it influences their minds. The reality was the economy was really bad, and we all knew it. The economy was miserable. Immigration was not good. We have immigration problems. We have economic problems, but Democrat voters keep eating it all up. Now, earlier, did a live stream discussing how the Democratic Party is basically imploding, how they're going after Elon and the bigger picture on all this one. But this is just one small component of the big story as to why a lot of Democrats have basically just said, yo, I am out. I am quitting the party. Because they were tricked, to be honest. Now, the Democrat politicians were the ones doing the tricking. So when they say how Democrats were tricked into believing the economy was good, I think it's fair to say how Democrat voters were manipulated and lied to. But here we are. And at the same time, the two big issues in the election, of course, it was the economy and it was immigration. Still, the media won't back down. Inflation heats up, adding pressure on Trump. Once again, liberal pundits are still blaming Donald. It's been 3 weeks. Now, to be fair, Trump's a boisterous guy, and he said, they won. We're going to get the prices down. And he didn't do it. But I mean, any sane person knows Trump talks a big game. He cranks it up to 11 and then walks it back. I think Trump's got a heavy task in front of him. But regardless, right now, we know. I mean, you and I knew the whole time. Immigration was bad. Illegal immigration was bad for this country. Unfettered mass migration to the tune of millions of people was destroying the labor market. And this, man, the economic experts sure are dumb. I tell you what. The economy was bad for a variety of reasons. The two big factors that people were concerned about was mass migration and prices. And Democrats lied about everything like they're doing now. They don't even really have anything against Donald Trump at this point. They're literally just coming out and saying Elon Musk is bad. He's the real president. Okay, well, fine. Let Trump cook, baby. But let's break this down. We'll talk about how the Democrats were tricked. But the big picture here, as we talk about what is obvious to all of you, that the economy is not doing too well. Trump's got a big task in front of him, and Elon is working to gut the fraud. Democrats are still lying. The corporate press is still lying, and that's why it's dying. They are lying. It's why they're dying. Politico writes, before the presidential election, many Democrats were puzzled by the seeming disconnect between economic reality, as reflected in various government statistics, and the public's perceptions of the economy on the ground. Many in Washington bristled at the public's failure to register how strong the economy really was. They charged that right-wing echo chambers were conning voters into believing entirely preposterous narratives about America's decline. What they rarely considered was whether something else might be responsible for the disconnect. Whether, for instance, government statistics were fundamentally flawed. You know what I love about this is that when we came out and said, the stats are wrong, these are not correct, Democrat liberal pundits called us liars. They said, you're just trying to scare people. I despise these people so much. They just lie. That's all they do. They lie about everything all the time. It's like, bro, when they were claiming the economy was good, I was like, just go to the grocery store. Are you kidding? You think what's funny is I likened it to that Family Guy joke where Peter Griffin's in the elevator with one other guy. He farts and he goes, it was you. It's like, dude, obviously you can't blame, like, who are you trying to convince? That guy knows he didn't do it. You're not lying to him. The American people go to the grocery store every day and they see the prices. And then you go on TV and say, actually, everything's better than ever. You're fine. And they're like, well, I can't buy eggs. I don't feel fine. And you know what really, really makes it worse? For the average person, what the Democrats were doing to them was psychological and emotional abuse. You got a dad. He's got 2 kids. He goes to the grocery store and he's pushing his cart and he's like, eggs, I can't afford this. Milk, I can't afford this. How am I supposed to feed my family? Then he turns the TV on and they're like, the economy is better than ever. Trump is lying. And you know what a lot of these people thought, a lot of these normies, they don't pay attention to politics. They were like, I must be a failure. Something's wrong with me. They all, the newspapers, the media, they're all saying the economy is fine and everyone can afford their groceries, but I can't. I must be a failure. That's what they were doing, battering the voters, making them seem, and you know, it wasn't the intention to batter the voters, but it's what they were doing. The reason why they were lying was they were trying to psychotically convince people to vote Democrat. That's the funniest thing. Don't trust your lying eyes when you're at the grocery store. Well, Politico says they were tricked. And this is what bothers me is they were claiming that right-wing echo chambers were conning voters. Right-wing. They say Tim Pool's right-wing. I'm like, I went to the grocery store and my salami was $15. True story. I tell this all the time. We used to buy these little packs of salami, and we have snacks for guests and for the staff in the refrigerator downstairs. We have a kitchen here. We have I bought like 1,000 Pop-Tarts. It's great. Probably not a good thing to eat. And I saw the price double from like $7 to $50. It was to $13.90 something or whatever. And they told me I was right wing for pointing that out. That's what bothers me. Scumbag liberal pundits. I'll leave them unnamed, I guess, but there's many of them. And they're like, Tim Pool's far right and conservative for pointing out groceries cost more. What are you talking about? That's not a liberal or conservative position. I went to the grocery store and it cost me more money. Why are you yelling at me? This is what it's been like for a decade. That if you point out like, Trump didn't call Nazis fine people, you're right wing. What? No, I'm a rather liberal guy, to be completely honest, but you're lying. Calling out Democrats for being liars makes you a conservative. That's what it means. People say, Tim, you say liberal all the time. What does that really mean? I say, well, let me tell you. Liberal means you lie or go along with the lie, and conservative means you call out the liars. Apparently, reality has a right-wing bias these days. They say what they rarely considered was whether something else.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering. I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. Bill Burr doesn't appear to be on a good path lately. And yesterday in a podcast, he said one of the wokest, dumbest things that I've heard come out of his mouth in a long time. And this isn't even the most recent thing. I mean, it was just a few weeks ago when he was vehemently defending the wild mismanagement of what was going on in Los Angeles over the wildfires, calling anybody who criticized it like some basement dwelling incel or something like that. I wonder, hear me out here. Is he about to get Me Too'd? Is there something that's going to come out about him? I know you think, Jeremy, dude, come on, man, that's crazy. Hear me out. There have been several other cases in the past where people have taken kind of this hard left turn in their life. I'm not saying Bill Burr wasn't liberal, but he's not liberal anymore. He's a leftist now. He married a black woman with TDS, and it has infected him. But the question is, look at the arc that Neil deGrasse Tyson had, right? Had never talked about gender being on a spectrum, had never talked about you're the gender that you wake up feeling like. He never talked about any of this nonsense. Then in 2018, he got Me Too'd by 4 different women. Poof. He keeps every one of his jobs, by the way, which at that time almost never happened. He kept every one of his jobs. But then for the next 10 years, he has spouted far leftist ideology and woke nonsense. It's just a theory. I have a theory that perhaps Bill Burr, somebody may have some dirt on Bill Burr that has led to this, because he has been getting absolutely shredded online. I wanted to pull up the original tweet because I think it's the responses, obviously, that's what I react to on this channel. But like the far left is going crazy over this. So Bill Burr said, and we're going to play the clip so you can hear it, said that billionaires should be put down like rabid dogs. Not millionaires, though. Let's just take a look. Let's see. Bill Burr net worth. Let's just take a look. Bill Burr is worth about $20 to $25 million. He's not part of the problem, right? It's just billionaires. Isn't it funny how these leftoids used to say millionaires and billionaires, millionaires and billionaires? Remember when Bernie Sanders, I think Bernie Sanders was kind of, the big modern voice for that. Millionaires and billionaires. Can I have $1, please? Now it's not millionaires anymore. No. Millionaires are fine. If you have $999 million in the bank, you're fine. But if you're a billionaire, you didn't earn it. I mean, if you look at some of these comments, Bill is worth 15 millions. This guy has millions. His wife has millions. This is just like when Bernie Sanders said that millionaires and billionaires should pay their fair share, till he himself became a millionaire, then changed the saying to billionaires should pay their fair share. If Bill Burr was a billionaire instead of a millionaire, he'd have a different opinion. But not but not the millionaires. Millionaires are okay. We can leave them alone. You know, I mean, the far left is eating this stuff up. This is how you get, I mean, it isn't that long ago that Bill Burr said, free Luigi. He said it as a quote unquote joke, but he meant it. It was very obvious he meant it. Any idiot could see that he meant it. You know, I'm sure he would say that to Oprah, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Kanye, all billionaires too. I don't know if Kanye still is, but certainly Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Oprah are. So what about them? Oh no, not them. They're just different billionaires, right? You know, so should comedians who have a net worth of 10 million? This guy is super woke. We all know what he means here. People are saying his wife is going to leave with his daughter if he doesn't toe the line. It's actually really hard to watch. I believe that. I believe that. You see, first they came for the billionaires and I said nothing because I was not a billionaire. Then they came for the millionaires. I mean, people are absolutely shredding him. Guys, hate on them, not me. I'm only worth 50 million. I mean, but the thing is, like, lots of people are backing this up and you're like, people might say, well, what did he really say? Well, he did really say that. Here's the clip.
People that are struggling out there because of these f***ing billionaires.
Yeah, everybody that owns a business is a billionaire. Now, when he says these billionaires, maybe he's just talking about, I don't know. I'm sure he's not talking about Bill Gates, right? Or George Soros or Jay-Z or Beyonce or Oprah or Alex Soros so I'm not exactly sure which billionaires he's talking about. Is he just talking about Elon here?
And they got us all arguing liberal and conservative. We got to stop doing that. Like, I am so tired of hearing about people going to bed worried about what's going to happen next week. There is so much fucking money in this country. And there's so much work being done, you know. And if you work a full fucking week at a job, you should be able to pay your fucking rent.
Most people can, bro. And by the way, if you're working a full-time job and you can't pay your rent, I'm not going to pretend like that doesn't exist, but most people end up getting a second job. And if his point is that sucks, we agree. For most of my life, when I was, 17, 18, 19, 20, until I was 30, I worked full-time. My wife worked full-time. I worked a second job at a pizza place, and she worked a second job at Walgreens on top of working full-time. So yeah, that does suck, okay? But coming from somebody worth $20 million, I don't really care, bro. Like, who are you talking about? The problem is, you get with these podcasts with these celebrities, people are like, oh, he's a celebrity, so he must know what he's talking about. I want to tune in. Nobody asks people, which billionaires are you talking about? Are you talking about the shareholders of the board of directors at health insurance companies? Are you talking about Jeff Bezos? By the way, where I live, you can walk on at Amazon at almost $30 an hour in the warehouse. Now, that might not be the case by you. I understand. I'm just saying, hey, I live where I live, right? I live in southeastern Wisconsin, and you can walk on at Amazon at $50K a year probably with no high school diploma for sure, no college or no college degree for sure. Now, I know 50 grand ain't what it used to be. Sometimes we age. I think it's just all true. It's like when I was 18, 19, and I had a job, I was making almost $40,000 a year. I almost quit and didn't go to college because I was like, why do I need college? I have all the money I'll ever need. And now, obviously, 40 grand a year isn't anything. You would have to have a roommate in an apartment to make that work. But like, what billionaires, Bill Burr?
You shouldn't have to go out and get a fucking job and still be struggling. It's bad for the country because then the kids don't see their parents and they're not getting the upbringing that they need. It's
wrong. When I grew up, both of my parents worked full time and my dad worked overtime, and I never went where I didn't see my parents. My mom worked first shift. My dad worked second shift. So I saw my mom and my dad every single day, at least for a little bit of time. And then I saw them all weekend long. And then when my dad would work overtime on Saturdays, I would see him all night on Saturday. And I would see him before I went to work on Saturday. And that is what a nuclear family does. Mom and dad work. We had two, I had just one sister, and I saw my parents plenty. Okay. And that's the problem is nobody has families anymore. Nobody's working together anymore. Everyone's living beyond their means, right? We went, I want. We got taught, we people were programmed in the, 2010s, 2000s. Dad, just get what you want. You deserve it. Treat yourself. All that kind of stuff, right?
So these fucking billionaires.
Name one.
They need.
Are you talking the owner of the Boston Red Sox? Bill Burr? Is that who you're talking about? Your buddy?
Need to be put down. Like fucking rabid dogs.
Why?
They're like rabid with fucking greed and just going out and just.
So when you're a millionaire, you earned it and you're good. But when you're a billionaire, you didn't earn that. Now, far be it for me to defend billionaires. I couldn't probably name you one billionaire that I think is inherently good. Even Elon Musk, I have been critical of some of the things. Remember when he called Americans lazy? Everyone forgot about that, right? Him and Vivek Ramaswamy said, we all sit around and watch too much Saved by the Bell and we're lazy. I remember that, right? Pepperidge Farms remembers that, and Elon has different views on immigration than I do. Now and I don't think he's a good father. I don't think you inherently can be a good father when you have a dozen kids from 10 different women. You don't spend any time with your kids. I would love to hear somebody tell me that Elon Musk is a good dad. Does he provide financially for his kids? Of course, I'm sure. But he doesn't spend any time with them except for X. That's it. That's the only kid you ever see him with, I suspect you could talk to any one of his kids. Particularly the trans one doesn't like him. Maybe if dad was around more, your kid wouldn't ended up trans. I don't know. Does that offend you? I don't. I'm just saying you can criticize just about anybody depending on, kind of regardless of how much money they make. But, this is Bill Burr. Again, Bill Burr has some words for self-proclaimed wildfire experts, not to mention most insurers. This guy's out here literally trying to radicalize people. Some idiot online knows how to manage the worst fire in LA sitting in his underwear in his mom's basement, he said. Well, Bill, I think most people could tell you from about 3 years old, regardless of their training in firefighting or their IQ or their level of.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Yeah, the media is always giving you a one-sided story, right? They're always telling the side of the establishment or the side of the DNC. In other words, they're never actually telling the truth. And where I believe this is most apparent was in their coverage of everything related to the January 6 hostages. And of course, we saw this play out more recently after President Donald Trump decided to pardon the J6 hostages, or at least 1,500 of them. And as we know, the media coverage has been pretty steady on this, right? It's unacceptable. They're a bunch of criminals that basically deserve to rot in prison. So black and white with the media, no nuance, and especially no facts. Well, I'd like to continue challenging this narrative that the Democrats have built up here. What I'm about to show you, I think, is truly going to put it all into perspective. I have a video that was just released by one of the January 6 hostages, an individual by the name of Chris Quaglin, where he shows the interrogation process that he faced. This is the hardened criminal that the Democrats wanted to lock up and throw away the key. This is what they're outraged over. But of course, most importantly, this shows you exactly how unjustified and politically one-sided these prosecutions were, how far the FBI took it in their goal of cracking down on everything Trump. If you thought the last update was bad, that over 5,000 FBI employees were involved in these shakedowns and prosecutions, that's over 10% of the entire department if you thought that was bad, and that proved political bias. Well, let me tell you, this is 10 times worse. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Okay, so like I said, Chris Quaglin just posted his J6 interrogation, and it is beyond disgusting. This man was threatened, coerced, and told to rat or he would never see his family again, and he was threatened with over 30 years in prison by the two feds interrogating him, pretending as if they were doing him a favor. Just take a look at this.
Just so you know, we talked to your wife, kind of explained what's going on right now, and what's going to happen throughout the day. Hopefully we'll get you a chance to talk to her a little bit later today. I know if I was in your shoes, a wife and a young kid, that's kind of would be on top of my mind right now. So just want to let you know we're conscious of that and we're trying to help you out on that front. I know all that. I've talked to a lot of people who knew you were there and have already told me that. So I'm not here to get a confession out of you. I don't need it, to be honest. What I'm here today to do is to try to throw your lifeboat. So right now, you're getting booked on several charges that carry decades worth of time right now. Those are maximums. You're not necessarily going to see all that, but 111B carries up to 20 years, 231 carries up to 10 years. Entering a protected place because Vice President Pence was there. It's a Secret Service protected area. That's a 5-year sentence as well. So looking at quite a bit of time right now. I'm not necessarily interested in screwing Chris Quaggle. That's not what I'm out here to do. What I'm here looking at is organizations, big pictures, planning, casting a wide net. And right now, I don't think it's fair for all of that pressure to come down directly on you when I know there's others who are involved, others who are responsible. And the reason I wanted to drive up here today and talk to you rather than wait until after you've had your appearance and gotten an attorney and done all those other things is because this is an active, ongoing investigation. Time is of value to us and to you, as I'm sure you've seen on the news coverage, because I know you've been checking the web pages. We're arresting people every day. We arrested people yesterday. You're not the only person we're arresting today. We're arresting more people Thursday, Friday, over the weekend. You're like number 350 that we've arrested. A lot of those people are talking and giving us information which will lead to other people. I tell you that so that you know that this is kind of a time-sensitive proposal that I'm offering you right now. If we don't talk now, whatever information you may be willing to provide a month from now is not necessarily going to be of use to me anymore because I'm going to get it from somebody else who we're going to arrest on Friday or next Tuesday or whatever it is. We just got lined up right now. So I'm here to kind of throw you that raft right now to help you from drowning, basically, because I don't want you to go away for 40 years and not see your daughter grow up and force your wife. To be frank, like in the overall scheme of what happened that day, people died. 5 people died. We've got people with lifelong debilitating injuries. People have lost eyes. They've had limbs amputated. They've had traumatic brain injuries. To date, nobody that I've seen that you're on camera assaulting has had anything like that. So, you know, on the broad spectrum of things, like you're not one of my most egregious. If when I get out of this room, I can call the United States Attorney and say, hey, I just spoke with Mr. Quaglen. You know, we talked through the whole thing. He's willing to cooperate and help and do what he can. And then they stand in front of that judge when he's making a decision about whether you're going to be held pre-trial for 18 months or however long it's going to take for your trial to actually happen, or if there's things that can be done to maybe make it so that doesn't need to happen. No promises, but I can almost guarantee you if we don't talk today, that's not going to happen.
There you freaking have it. A man who was exercising his constitutional right to protest was treated like a mafia informant. He was treated like a murderer, pressured to betray his family and the people around him so the regime could build up this fraudulent case, and they threw everything at him. You'll never see your family again. Oh, and just so you know, these charges that you're facing carry up to 10 and 20 years in prison respectively. They threw everything at this guy as if he was a freaking terrorist. And we know that that's the approach that they were taking because that's really, what they've been saying in the media, that these people should essentially be treated as domestic terrorists. And so obviously the next question that now follows is, well, what exactly did this guy do to be facing all of this time in prison and to be treated with such aggressive tactics? And well, of course, that's where it gets 10 times worse. See, according to Chris and the evidence that he presents, he never actually hurt anyone or intended to act violently. He posted this photo of himself during the protest. He's this individual here, wearing the American flag sweater, and he wrote, "When Antifa pushes you into a cop, then you get 12 years because he said he hurt his back 4 months later and 2 weeks after FBI agent Benjamin Fulp says you didn't hurt anyone." Now, of course, we can't verify if the individual who pushed him is actually Antifa or not. But apparently, he was pushed onto a Capitol Hill police officer, and they gave him 12 years for that. And supposedly, the officer that was the victim here never said anything, and then randomly after 4 months, came out to testify that he suffered a horrible back injury. The level of absurdity is just crazy. Oh, and I almost completely skipped the fact that the individual who was pressuring Mr. Quaglen in the video in the blue shirt, Mr. Benjamin Fulp, even at one point supposedly admitted that Quaglen never actually hurt anyone. So we had an individual here who was present during the protest, who got pushed onto a police officer. The police officer, from what we understand, initially never claimed to be injured, but then 4 months later came out saying he had a back injury. And Mr. Fulp, the cop who I guess was in charge of investigating this case, even admitted that nobody was seriously injured, yet they gave him 12 years. That's completely insane. I mean, that is just, it's insane. It's unjustifiable, especially considering all the violence that we saw coming from far-left agitators, Antifa types, Black Lives Matter protesters during the summer of riots of 2020. We saw multiple police officers actually injured. We saw way worse actions, and the FBI barely lifted a finger. But with these guys, they took it to the next level. They threatened him with decades in prison and pressured him to flip on others, otherwise he would never see his family again. We also have this. Prosecutors urged the judge to sentence Quaglin to 14 years in prison. They said that he was one of the most violent rioters of January 6th when a mob of Donald Trump supporters disrupted the joint session of Congress for certifying President Joe Biden's 2020 electoral victory. The judge convicted Quaglin of 6 separate assaults on police. Prosecutors say that he struck or pushed another dozen officers. Now, we don't know the severity of any of these instances, and if anybody arguing that this guy was really so violent, well, I'd say please show us the video evidence. I mean, if it was so bad, if he was such a violent actor on the day of, you'd think that we'd see the evidence by now, right? You'd think that they would have presented something, especially as the left has been going on and on about how violent and terrible the day was. You'd think that this would basically make their case, but we've seen absolutely nothing. Certainly nothing to justify 12 years in prison, not to mention the torture that they put this man through.
Christopher Quaglin has been in custody since April 7th of last year, assaulting, resisting, impeding certain officers, using a dangerous weapon, a lot of allegations against him. He's in trouble legally and physically. He's lost 20 pounds since December. He's COVID-19 positive. He's in solitary confinement, and he has celiac disease, and his attorney tells us he's not being treated.
He is purposefully being starved. He's being denied medical treatment. This was recognized this week by multiple members of Congress. Just today, from the office of Congressman Clay Higgins, and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and 12 other signees sent a letter to the top dog in the Bureau of Prisons, demanding answers about Christopher Quaglin and demanding answers about other people who have been mistreated. But Chris is in dire need of medical help. He's at risk of dying right now.
This man went through torture and inhumane treatment. It just seems totally unjustifiable. Now, am I saying that he acted totally perfectly the entire time? No, probably not, but 12 years in prison to face the pressure that he faced? In my view, there's only one way to justify the way that they acted. It was all political. It was about sending a message. I can't think of any other explanation, especially when you think about the amount of resources that were used to go after these people. I mean, they treated it as if they were going after the cartel, getting people to flip on each other. They wanted everybody. No mattress was left unturned. Not to mention, again, the report from CNN the other day telling us that over 5,000 FBI employees were involved in these prosecutions. It was all hands on deck, going after Trump supporters.
Hey, man, that's my gun, man. Get my pistol back, bro. Don't do me like that, dog. Hey, come on, bro. Bro, come on, man. Don't do me like that, dog. Hey, y'all don't do me like that, bro. Hey, come on, dog. Hey, bro. Hey, don't do me like that, bro. Hey, man, that was wrong, bro. Nah.
Man, I'm going to keep doing these videos over and over and over again and keep showing them over and over again until people start to realize that open carry comes with its perils and pocket carry comes with even bigger perils. You'll have to realize there's always someone watching you. especially when you go to a gas station. That's why I hate gas stations. I hate them. Gas stations are just where goes to congregate, sit and wait for you, and then pounce on you like the victim they want you to be. I hate gas stations. But you have to remember, if you're going into a gas station, hell, if you're just moving around, period, someone is probably watching you. And you can tell these 3 dudes set him up from the jump. They spotted him a long time ago. And I promise you, one of 2 things happened. He either was carrying a gun in his pocket and they saw the gun, or he had his gun in a holster, but his t-shirt lifted up and exposed it. And I don't know if they were able to tell whether or not the holster had a retention system, but if you think about it, if you're carrying a gun in a typical Kydex holster and you're carrying it at a 3 o'clock, maybe even 4 o'clock, like this guy kind of was, actually that wouldn't even be 5 o'clock. That would be more like 7, 8 o'clock. So let's say your shirt lifts up when you're getting out of your truck or car. Now your shirt is sitting behind the grip of your firearm and the world can see it and they're watching you. You get out of your truck and you go inside. You're paying for your food and you're unaware of what's happening behind you. You don't realize you have 3 jackals literally waiting to pounce and steal your gun. And in this case, it really wouldn't matter if he had a holster or not. He probably had a passive retention system. But at the end of the day, you can still just yank it out, even with a regular Kydex holster. That's pretty much what it was designed to do. So unless you have a level 2 or 3 retention system, that's a whole different story. But I'm telling you, be incredibly mindful about what your gun is doing at all times. This is exactly why I stopped carrying at 3 o'clock. I used to carry my gun at the 3 o'clock position right here on my hip every single time because that's how I grew up seeing it carried. You carry the gun on your hip, 3 o'clock position, right-handed, boom, right there. But I stopped because I kept realizing that as I went throughout my day, my shirt would lift up, my gun would be exposed, and half the time I didn't even realize it because it's away from my line of sight. I can't see what it's doing. I have a general idea, but unless I'm constantly looking down at my waist, I don't know exactly what my gun is doing. Whereas with appendix carry, I know exactly what my gun is doing every single time because it's in my peripheral vision. I don't necessarily have to look down at it. I can go about my day and just in my peripheral vision know if my shirt is exposing my gun is tilted, my shirt is printing, you name it. That's why I like to carry appendix. And it's just faster. I can conceal it easier, and I always know what's going on with it. But when you keep it at the small of your back or at 3 o'clock and you don't always know what's going on with your gun, and that's the thing people need to factor in whenever they carry. Can you make sure you know what your gun is doing at all times? And that's what I think this guy was a victim of. He was a victim of not understanding what his gun was doing. And sometimes your gun doesn't even need to be exposed. Just the handle printing through your shirt is enough. And this is why I'm always big on making sure nobody can tell I'm carrying a gun, because you don't know who's watching you. There are people preying on you to take your gun. You think these 3 kids are gonna walk into a gun store and legally buy a firearm? No, they're looking to steal them. And here's the thing. If you find yourself in a situation where someone steals your gun, my God, do not go after them. Don't chase them. Don't track them down. Don't try to reason with them. They just took your gun. They are not going to give it back. But unfortunately, this man did the opposite, and he ended up losing his life for it. Think about that for a second. As unsmart as what this man did, they still shot him knowing he didn't have a gun because they just took his. And there's a high likelihood they shot him with his own gun. Don't do this. I'm begging you, don't do this. Unfortunately, there are people out there who think just having a gun is enough. Like the moment someone sees your gun, they're suddenly gonna get scared and run off. Wrong. These kids are crash outs. They'll do anything without thinking about it. They don't process it mentally. They just act. So you having a gun means nothing to them. These kids are willing to kill you faster than you're willing to kill them to protect yourself because you value life. They don't. I'm not against open carry. I just don't do it because I don't want to deal with the limitations. If you're in a rural area, maybe open carry isn't a big deal. But if you're in a city where people are actively looking to steal guns, you can't just be walking around with a Kydex holster thinking nobody's going to try you. They will. And when they do, not only will they take your gun, they'll laugh at you while doing it and may just shoot you for the of it. And worst case, they'll shoot you with your own damn gun. This guy literally stood there begging for his gun back. You want that to be you? Exactly.
You know how frightening it is to think about what happens in the moments before, during, and even
in that video of the gas station shooting, you could see there was like a Cadillac Escalade type SUV on the left side, and they started to feel the tension, and you see them back out. Instead of normally they would pull out the front, you see that even if you're not the participant in such things, bystanders are a thing. At any given time, those convenience stores, gas stations, they have a lot of people going through there. So first case, be situationally aware of where you're going and who might be in there and what's coming in, like as far as traffic while you're in the store. And these are not things taught in school, but these are things learned the hard way, unless you learn them proactively. To put yourself in a situation like that is risky, and then to not be prepared to defend in that situation is even more risky. And then once you get got, to go after them was deadly in his case. And they could have just, drawn on him and stuck him up and took his gun in the first place, but they just reached in and grabbed it. It was that easy to get. So lots of problems there that should not be repeated, but there's a lot of people these days who are learning how to do Second Amendment, various types of carry. And you don't need to just see the rah-rah stories of here's the people who defended themselves, their families, and their property. You also need to be exposed to here's what goes wrong when people with pocket guns shoot themselves or they get their pockets picked in those cases.
Yeah, definitely. And so much lessons from that one, man. Like, that's so crazy. Like, I hadn't seen that. It was a pretty sizable gun. The print on the side there, obviously you could probably tell a mile away that he's carrying, and probably in his mind he's almost like, oh, they can see that I got a gun even though it's concealed. You know what I mean? So it's like they're not going to test me, they're not going to try me. And that defeats the whole purpose of concealed carry, self-defense, or and in the first place, right? The whole idea is that they don't know yet you have a gun until it's time to use lethal force. That's the whole philosophy. Like, you're not even supposed to, you're not supposed to lift a shirt, brandish it, act like a tough guy. Like, you have to resolve the conflict at every means necessary up to lethal force, and that only gets deployed when lethal force is necessary. That's why it's like the philosophy of one in the chamber, because you're not pulling it out like in the movies and cocking it and like warning people. It's like the second the gun is deployed, you're firing to kill within like less than a second, ideally, like, as quickly as humanly possible. So that's the whole philosophy there. So there's no value, and it's dangerous to walk around broadcasting that you're armed, right? Just for that exact reason. It could either exacerbate a situation or invite a situation that's completely unnecessary. And so, I'm a fan of the appendix carry as well. They don't even need to know. I mean, that's the way you do it.
Learn to tip your hips out when you holster. Push.
Yeah. That's the big argument against it. Or like that one clip we showed a few weeks ago of the cop pulling the gun out and then accidentally shooting the guy in the leg. Yeah. It's like, obviously, if you're appendix carry, like, that's nightmarish. Like, if you get pulled, if you're appendix carry and it's like a female officer, she's like, I'm gonna just get your gun real quick. I'm just like, oh God, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry, ladies, just kidding. But like, it does come down to education. It comes down to not only learning the practical hands-on necessities of handling a firearm, but it also has to do with understanding the philosophy behind a lot of this stuff too. And it is just something that, you just have to expose yourself to. Like you said, you have to be proactive in learning this stuff, because nobody's going to teach you, especially this stuff right here. And it is life and death stuff. I'm a huge Second Amendment proponent, and I think everybody should be carrying, but like, you just got to know. You just got to know, man. And you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them, unfortunately.
LD says he's been appendix carry for a couple of years now. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you carry it at the 6 o'clock position, if you get put down on your back, as most fights do, you're going to break your spine before you even get a chance to do anything, right?
Yeah.
If you carry it at 5 o'clock on your cheek and your hip pocket type area, you're going to have to flag yourself with the pistol as you bring it around. Now, I say this because I've carried at both of those positions. I'm just letting you know. By the time you get to 3 o'clock, unless you're carrying open carry, it's kind of awkward to just add that to your hip on one side, and it does print pretty bad, right? The downside of appendix carry is there's a number of aspects to that, the downside of it. But there's also upside. This is where your hands naturally are. When you're talking, your hands are right here by your tools. If somebody got their hands right here by your tools, you're used to putting your hands there to defend yourself. You're not used to doing anything back here, right? So there's a variety of cases with that. And then the no round in the chamber, Israeli carry, right? Israelis only did that because they had a bunch of untrained yahoos with pistols that weren't, uniform pistols, right? So they had a bunch of different stuff. It was safer for everybody. So empty chamber, right? If you think empty chamber is like you're going to rack it in the moment, there's a lot of people who argue both sides. I've watched some people, it's just a matter of practice, right? However, I don't want to be introducing a cartridge into the chamber at a moment when if it goes wrong or jams, SOL. Right.
Yep.
The other aspect is if you have an empty chamber and the bad guy picks it up, it goes click. He's just going to rack it and shoot you. Right. Whereas if you have a safety, I'm not telling people what to do, but if you have a safety, it's one extra thing that person who just picked up your gun doesn't know about. And it's one extra thing that officer trying to disarm you has like between you and them shooting you. Right. And if you train and you put your reps in, there's a safety on your shotgun. There's a safety on your AR-15, and you can have a safety if you want to on your single action, dual action, or, striker fired or whatever you want. There's different ways, but you have to think it through before the moment to make the right choices for you. And I would never tell anyone what to do with guns because I've seen gun stores before, right? How many guns in there are like, who would buy this? People. So not everyone has the same gun taste. Everyone pretty much has a unique gun taste up until they see YouTube videos and everybody buys SIGs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My daily carry is just like a single stack, 40 with a safety just for that exact reasons like you described there. But like if I'm out in the woods, like if I'm going camping and stuff, like I'll open carry, hip carry my full size 45, out in the woods.
For sure.
You never know.
You need to be able to get to it. You've got outer garments on, things like that.
Yeah, totally. So it's like situational, but yeah, if you're in an urban environment, man, like, yeah, that's.
And if you're
you got to
hunting,
be a lot more smart. Yeah.
Chest rig right here.
There
Pistol,
you go.
Boom, bear, dead, maybe. We'll see. That's how you could do that. All right, so that's a sad story. I'm sorry that young man tried to go retrieve his gun. It was just like one mistake after the next mistake, after the next mistake, after the next mistake out there. And then you heard it. And that was a lot of shots. I didn't count them. I would guess around 30.
I started counting and lost track around 20, and there was a bunch more. I would say 40 to 50 shots there for sure. That was crazy.
Which means all those other young individuals were likely armed with, pretty sizable magazines. So we can learn from his lesson. That was a hard lesson for him to teach. It's only teaching that lesson once. And we live to tell about it and tell our friends and make sure that doesn't happen to us. And again, if there's another bodega, bro, there's another place that might be safer. How bad is what you need in that place? Are you buying lottery tickets? What are you doing? That's a significant risk profile that you're entering into. And people, if you're in there and people show up, that's one thing. But if you see there's like a whole mob of people who might be, I don't know, not friendlies, and then you go put yourself in the middle of that with, not good concealment, then that's the type of thing that happens out there. If you're interested in outgrowing your status quo, I triple dog dare you to go over to getautonomy.info, read the page, and you can either talk to a graduate, that's what schedule a call means, or you take the primer course and you get all your questions answered, and you see if it's right for you. Now's the time to outgrow what they're putting out there as far as Just because Trump's doing all these executive orders doesn't restore family households and people having enough money to make ends meet and plan and prep and do all the other things that make you calm, cool, collected. Like if you're short of cash and you're not like caught up on what you need to do responsibility wise, that's a lot of pressure. So the way to get out of that is consistent growth. And that means learning, and growth is equivalent to goals, and getting your goals together and getting your network together, getting some good ideas together and making a stronger offer to the market. Because I'm just going to say it. If you went through schooling, you have been undermined for a great amount of time during your formative years. This is the restoration process. This is your renaissance process. This is where you all bring it all back together, make it all pay off going forward. But it takes a little work. And so we coordinate. We do it twice a year for 12 weeks at a time with a bunch of other friendly, freedom-minded people. Not everyone thinks alike, but we all have the same interests that freedom is better than slavery. So with all that,
I recommend it very much. I'm a graduate. I recommend anybody out there, if you want to outgrow the status quo, as Richard said. And then right there, you said something. I was like, that would be a good like autonomy slogan or just a throwaway phrase where it's like, don't get undermined. Like, don't be undermined, like MIND instead of. Yeah. Anyway, undermined.
Yeah, that's good.
There's something in there. But then also, of course, you guys, if you want to learn how to take out a Super Bowl ad and then deliver an actual valuable offer to the market, you can learn such skills at Autonomy.
Easy.com.
Yeah. You know, if you go to the trouble if you get your business up to the point where you're getting Super Bowl ads, you can learn how to then follow that up with an actual viable offer to the market.
You could do better than Kanye. That's what I'm saying. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happen. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.